Okay, yeah, you read the title. Cities are big. There's no time to waste. Let's go, go, go! Immediately, I deleted that darn default cube. Then we're gonna want to bring in Barnaby to use as a base scale, of course, because I could just measure everything, but what's the fun in that? Right about here is where I realized I had no idea what I was doing. So I thought about what I wanted the final scene to look like, and drew it to staggering detail in MS Paint. I wanted some tall buildings as the main thing, with the camera on the other side of a body of water. What kind of body of water? I don't know, just needs to look cool. I felt that would be too plain, so I added a nice little pier with some boats to the front of the scene. Now, what is a city but a bunch of buildings? So I should probably make some buildings. The first building, I wanted to just be a regular old boring office building, so I made a bunch of loop cuts for the windows and made sure to scale them to Barnaby here. I made the border between the windows thicker and moved them all in to give the building some texture. I applied the texture I made for the window glass to the okay, well, I tried to apply the window texture to just the windows, but I guess it applied to everything. It's fine though, don't worry about it. I fixed it, I did fix it immediately. We don't want you losing any sleep over this now. I used this technique that I learned from this video by Max Hay to give the windows slightly wobbly reflections by adding a noise texture into the normal. For the building to actually look like it's being supported by something, I had to add a concrete texture because like pretty much all skyscrapers are made of concrete. Well, and also metal beams, but the metal beams are like on the inside, so I don't like You get it. You're smart. This is a funny little Blender video. I am not an engineer. But anyway, I went to my good old pal old friend Polly Haven to pick up one of them concrete physically based rendering textures I've been hearing about. I slapped that bad boy onto the building and made it an actual skyscraper by stacking it up on itself a whole lot with the array modifier. Wow, that thing is pretty tall if I do say so myself. At each corner, I put these large pillars, and because skyscrapers don't just have windows, since there needs to be maintenance floors and stuff like that, I also added a few solid concrete blocks about every third of the way up to break up the building. At the bottom of the tower, I elongated a couple floors to make the street level floors a wee more dramatic. At the top, I did something similar but with concrete. I added just a simple roof, which apparently was a little too hard for me to add in some future buildings, by just adding a wall around the perimeter of the top of the building. The top of the buildings couldn't just be empty though. I had to add some little doodads and trinkets up there, like aircon units, vents, and the like. Other stuff too, I'd assume. Maybe like a bubble machine. That'd be fun. Just millions of bubbles floating over a city at all times of the day. Wow. Okay, I think I'm getting off track. The aircon units, yes. A pretty common way of making small or far away objects that the camera isn't going to be able to see up close is to just take some like normal images of the thing you're making and slap that baby on the most simplistic model you can imagine. You just have to match up the UVs. All there is left to do is set the roughness to something that makes sense. So in this case, I made it a little reflective, cause like metal, and boom, works like a charm. I just made another aircon unit with slight variation, and that's it for the... Wait. How are people going to get up here? Staircase. There needs to be a staircase that goes up here so that people can enjoy their amazing air conditioning units. Of course, there doesn't actually need to be a staircase. We just need to imply that there's a staircase since that's not how Blender... No, we already went through this. Anyway, yeah, basically I just made a box with a couple windows and a door and some other stuff. Most of the footage of me making is corrupted. Thanks, OBS. But yeah, just pretend it's this but way cooler. Trust. But you know what footage isn't corrupted? Well, not what I did next, because that is also corrupted. But basically I just made the street design pretty straightforward. Just got a street texture slapped down on a plane, got a brick texture slapped down on a plane for a bike lane, and got a concrete texture. And you know, I realize I've been doing a lot of slapping in this video. I really have to calm down. But next, I lined the streets with trees between the car lane and bike lane. I used Blender's built-in tree generator, which doesn't make very high quality trees, but that's better since they're going to be far away and won't take as much computing power. Then I just then I gently placed down a bark and leaf texture onto the model. I duplicated and rotated the leaves a bunch so that there's more leaves without me having to add a bunch more branches, because that would add a lot of unnecessary geometry. Then it was as simple as just duplicating the trees along the street. Pretty soon I'm gonna make a video where I only make what you guys suggest, so give me some suggestions in the comments. Could be serious or a little wacky, silly, quirky. Even if they're terrible, maybe it'll be funny. I don't know. I didn't make the video yet because I don't have any suggestions. I tried asking, but no one gave me any and now I feel bad. Also subscribe. Ha 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 ha. Anywho, I made an intersection that could easily be copy and pasted throughout the street layout. I just made one corner of it, then duplicated and rotated it 3 times to make the whole thing. I had to fix the textures though. I mean, I didn't have to, but this would be a strange looking street. On each corner of the intersection, I also created traffic lights. I could have just made them a cylinder, but that would be boring, so I gave them a bit of flair, if you will. I made a few grooves that give it more detail. You definitely will not be able to tell in the final render, but I'll know it's there, and that's all that matters. Right? Don't worry though, I'm not completely insane. I did just use a regular cylinder for the top part. I made the actual traffic light part of the traffic light, then just duplicated it a bunch of times and boom, there we are. I did just make the traffic lights be on a random color, just so it looks cool from far away. It doesn't have to make any sense. None of this makes any sense. Also, I used like half of the traffic light model to make these street lamps. Whoa, look, it's another building. I didn't record like any of me making this one because it was pretty much the same process. I did, however, record myself putting an antenna on top of it because antennas are cool. In the original building, to make the effect where some lights are on and some are off, I just took an image of windows at night and used that as the texture, with some adjustments to make the windows with the lights that are on in the image glow. It's a technique that I believe I learned from Blender legend and professional cool looking guy, Ian Hubert. The issue though is that I am not Ian Hubert, so I didn't know how to get the image to stop looking like it's repeating on this larger building, and I couldn't find an image to use that had more windows. So I made my own texture from scratch. Here it is. I tried making the windows look like there's some stuff going on behind them, cause just solid colors wouldn't look very good. At least not for the sort of realistic style I'm going for. And if this texture looks complicated, it is. Well, to me it is. I honestly do not know how this works. I did make it. I made it, but I have no idea what's going on. But enough talking about windows and streets and all that. Cities usually have multiple buildings. Apparently, Saudi Arabia did not get that memo. So far, I've only made a couple of generic looking box buildings. So this time, I made a generic looking curvy building. Truly innovative. I added the concrete elements and some metal ones too, and just like that, boom, another building completed. I wanted a classic 30s style tiered skyscraper to top the skyline, since the other buildings have been more modern. I didn't plan at all how I wanted this to look, I kinda just started making the basic shape and tweaked everything from there. I tried making a fancy little design throughout the structure by moving the parts in the middle upwards, but it ended up just making a massive mess, so I left it as a box. Very sad. Very sad. I applied the window texture and added more concrete, and just like that, oh wait, it looks terrible. Like, if this thing was in my city, I would actually start tearing it down single-handedly. Like, it would take a while, but eventually I would completely remove it. So I added some more concrete going horizontally, and it was actually fine. If this building was in my city, I'd be like, huh, that building looks kinda strange, and promptly move on. A berm type thing I thought would be a good cushion between the water and street. I wanted the bottom half of the wall that's going at the end of the grassy berm to be shiny, and the top half dry, so it looks like the water has been hitting the wall. I tried plugging in a gradient texture to get that effect, but I'm not gonna lie, every time I try using the gradient texture, it goes horribly wrong, and I end up using something else. I played around with a few different textures, and I ended up using the wave texture to get the water hitting the wall look. Also, I am just now realizing how fitting using the wave texture for this is. Huh. To fill out the rest of the scene, I shrunk real-world buildings with a shrink ray I got from my local hardware store, stole them, and teleported them into my computer, Tron style. This turned out to be a lot easier than making the rest of the buildings from scratch. I wasn't a very large fan of how the scene looked in general. It kinda looked not very good if you were to ask me. So I did a complicated maneuver called rotating the sky, and it was better. Looks a lot more dramatic. Long story short, I copy and pasted some buildings, made some taller so they'd be visible in the background, and look, now there's no gaps between the buildings. I know that's what you were thinking. I know. The scene needed more life to it, you know what I mean? I went over to a random company name generator and generated some random company names. I wanted something that sounded super generic. These were all just bad. But finally, a brain blast, brighter, without an E. It was perfect. And the simplistic logo basically drew itself. Oh yeah, this was for a sign on top of a building, BTW, in case you haven't figured that out yet. Wow, barely noticeable. Perfect. Also, this font looks really cool. I just felt like I needed to tell that to you guys. You know what doesn't look really cool though? All of these buildings look too uniform. I remedied this slightly by making another glass texture, a blue one. I don't know if this is realistic or not, but I do not care. If it's not realistic, I'm taking artistic liberties. If it is realistic, I'm a genius. Now I have another problem. Why are there so many problems? There's like a bunch of holes in the ground that go down towards the bright void where all Maya users go to die. I literally just put giant faces with some random asphalt texture on to patch them up. Since this city is on water, and cities that are on water usually have a lot of boats, I added some boats and a pier for the boats to like go on. I downloaded all of these from CG Trader, and I had to mess around with the textures a lot. It was not fun, and it gives me a mild headache just thinking about it, but I'm good. It's done. Also, yeah, I know there's only like 3 boats, but similar to what I did with my nature scene, I added a fog effect with mist pass, but this time much closer to the camera because the scene is smaller. The fog I made an orange tint and made it kind of start in the middle of this building so you can see more clearly where it starts. Let's lightning round this next stuff. I don't really feel like writing a whole paragraph for each of these things, and that would probably be very boring to watch anyway. Ready? I put multiple lights shining up on this antenna. I moved the camera to a more down looking up angle. I made random stuff to put in this berm. Please ignore that it would be very difficult to play any net involved game on a hill with this steep of an angle. Import the elevated train tracks I made in this video and never used. Import a train model I downloaded from CG Trader. Put lights over the windows because the windows are just part of the texture and not actually windows. Realized it would look better if the windows were cut out so you could see the interior. Make a train interior. Add some cars and buses on the street. And finally, add some pedestrians to the street. Actually, that train part probably could have used its own paragraph. But after all of this, does the final image look good? I don't know. Maybe.